So it'll tell me.
All right. I think we're live with the people here.
Live with the people. So, what's up, people?
Yeah. Grateful to have Izzi with me today. So this is Michael Cundick, and we're coming live today from my backyard. How are we doing on that there? So we're taking just a moment to spread the word around here before we get too wild and crazy with it.
Yeah, we're gonna share with the people.
Make sure we've got a good. Sure this is sounding right.
What's up, people?
We got the weird audio issue thing. Let me just fix that real quick. I think if I. Check. Turn back to this. 1, 2, 1, check.
1, 2.
All right. Did we beat the crazy audio thing?
Check.
How's our crazy audio? That sounds right. All right. Did we beat the crazy audio? We sure did. Okay. We are good to go. All right. And I want to not show that anymore. Okay. Well, thanks to everybody who's tuning in, being patient with us to get started here. I'm here with one of my favorite people on the planet. I probably say that a fair amount. I'm surrounded by some pretty amazing people in my life, but Izzi from Ancestral Medicine Revival. Thank you for being on the live stream and podcast here today with me.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me in your wonderful sanctuary.
Yeah. I love being able to do these live streams from our own little food forest backyard. We sometimes call this the Cundick Stead, where my wife and I have lived the last 4 years, and a lot of beautiful things to be around, and grateful for the comforting atmosphere. It's nice being in a city and having the chance to be surrounded with gardens and trees and the sounds of birds, and gosh, it just keeps me sane and grounded, right?
It's uncommon for the city to have a landscape like this, so it's nice to come in to hop in this natural world.
Cool. Well, Izzi, there's so much that's, I think, relevant for people right now, and I'm grateful to be speaking with someone who I really consider to be a peacemaker, a bridge builder, someone who takes your role to bring love and awareness to the people. Like this is what you do. I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong or how you would word it, but like I see you as someone who's bringing a lot of light and a lot of peace, and I've been really dedicated to that. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. I wonder, maybe as we're grounding in on this, we were talking about maybe having you share some of your music with us. I think
we can start us off while people getting in.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. This flute's from a good brother in Colombia. He's a maestro, an ayahuasquero, and he does incredible wood work. And I've only seen the fire behave the way it has when being around.
Thank you.
Of course.
So I guess we always should start with giving you a chance to talk a bit about your story, about who you are and what you've been up to. So let's start.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate. Well, as the Haudenosaunee or Oneida say, they would say Aguajil, Aguajil, Shakoli Aguajil, which means hello family. And then the traditional is introducing your ancestors before you, 7 generations. So I honor all my ancestors, and then even paying gratitude to our earth and our sun and all of the elements too, and just recognizing the natural life as we speak these good words and talk about so many worldly issues that has so many human emotions going everywhere. And so I just want to bring honor to these lands and say Salt Lake City, and the people that used to roam it or still do roam it, and these mountains. These mountains are super incredible. So giving attention to these mountains, the salt flats here. That's a particular situation in its own, especially after coming from Israel, and that's blessing around these lands. So, and then my name is Izzy, White Eagle Song. Me and my brother Adam, Shoulder the Feather, are Haudenosaunee. So it's part Oneida, which is people would hear the 5 nations or the 6 nations, which is the Haudenosaunee. So our father is from Texas, so that would stem back to Aztec, even into Toltec. We have Irish in our blood, so we're a mix of like a lot of people like these on these lands. But um, during the awakening process, the remembering process, my brother and I have started a nonprofit called Tree of Life Wellness, and then a project underneath that called Ancestral Medicine Revival. And our mission and our intention is to um, be bridge builders from indigenous society, community, wisdom, and technologies, maybe, just ancient ways of living, bring them into modern day, sometimes everyday living, or vice versa, and or meet in the middle. So it's just like, so yeah, we've remembered a lot of our ancestral ways and knowledges, because it wasn't present when we were younger, and it was, God has a plan. So we were away from it for a while, and then it surfaced at the right time to start some of these projects. So Ancestral Medicine Revival started with simply taking an elder on tour, and that elder taught us how to move freely through traveling, and taught us about setting up ceremony, and obviously what ceremony is, and taught us a little bit about sound, a little bit about stones and feathers, and how you can be fully self-sustainable while living on their own, as long as you got your intention in prayer. And this was the first time we had jumped away from the corporate world. Just a year after, me and my brother. And so yeah, we started what we were doing, what we just call employed by spirit, or employed by nature, or messenger of gods, whatever way you want to play with it. But we've remembered these original ways, and they're not just the indigenous people of this land's ways. They're the ways of, some can mark it back to the beginning of seeding this earth experiment, some would say, or this earth like experience, this wonderful blessing of a life. And so yeah, we've been traveling to several different countries now, and collecting words, whether it's a ceremony or a song, or even languages from different indigenous communities all over. And it's been an incredible journey, because we get to share what our ancestors have taught for so long, and share that with other people from all over the world that have similar stories, of creation stories. And so through ancestral medicine, we've been able to organize our sound ceremonies, which is basically sound therapy, and cymatics, which science gets into. But that's been our platform to merge just what we've stated as a mission, to merge ancestral technologies, indigenous wisdoms into like modern day studios or any warehouses, businesses. And so it's an experiment. It's experience for about an hour. It involves pranayama, breath work. It involves laying down, um, and working to be open to meditate rather than trying to meditate, because that's the paradox. And and then we use what we call or meditation processes that allow us to effortlessly move from our minds into our hearts without having to try, because that's the big thing. Like, it's how do I do it? And so, we try to hold these events in a
And
way that it's
when you guys are
peaceful.
doing these sound ceremonies, I mean, I've been blessed to have been participated in
Mm.
a couple of them. Paint the scene, brother. I mean, because the
Okay.
two of you are so
Thanks.
talented, and there's such a broad array of instruments and
Mm,
modalities, and like, I'd love
true.
for you to talk just a little more about what
Please.
that feels like, what it looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. The sound ceremony we organize, we use this word ceremony because it's just a word that simply refers to intention and attention and focus, like group focus. So it can be as simple as that. But when you get back into civilizations, ceremony was this way, this way. Like these, the indigenous people here, like our ancestors talk about the seven sacred ceremonies, and there's order to those, and there's homages and ways to go about those ceremonies. So what we've been able to do is merge, a new life within an ancient life, and set these experiences up where people would come in, we would sage the room, we would clear the room, and we would set up a medicine wheel before anybody arrives. And that medicine wheel is attuned to north and south poles. And this technology is such an ancient technology that we like to utilize because our ancestors, and there's so much information of why they were used, what they were doing, and what it incorporates. And the ancestors refer to it as the sacred hoop of life, in that it contains all caustics, animals, virtues, colors within this medicine wheel, symbolically, but even physically, scientifically, because of north and south are attuned, and north and west within a circle. So geometry and numbers in order will gather information, data. So like this ancient technology, just of stones in a circle with directions coming to another circle, science says that we can generate a charge or a field off of this, um, and that field can be held with your intention. So, for instance, it would be used. Ancient times, it was used to generate resources, like to bring back water, to generate rain, even microbial life, soils, animals. But they would use them for ceremonies too, as well. But so the idea is that they talk about it as an etheric fire. The medicine wheel could be equated to an etheric fire, that it's always on and it's always recycling the energy, the air around it. So what we do is set it up in the middle. We say activate it, like turn it on, and program it, as we would say, with sound, in a drum in our song. And then we would in the beginning of our sound ceremonies, we describe a little bit about pranayama and a little bit about sound. Um, and we really emphasize the work of pranayama and this breath exercises. Again, another ancient technology that's been used for so long. Um, and so it's a simple breath pattern that we encourage them to follow, and we encourage that because it's more or less the generator of the whole experience. Because if we can focus enough to stay into that breath rhythm, your body will go these reactions, I would say, through oxygen and just scientific processes. But and then we have people lay with their heads towards the medicine wheel with the intention that with our feathers that we can move air or spent energy, which would we call emotion, because a lot of times during these experiences, because of the pranayama, will bring up emotions or trauma, sometimes in the form of laughing, sometimes in the form of crying, screaming. But just because we've done it enough, we know how to direct that spent emotion back into the medicine well, so that it can be recycled. So that's how we use that. And then the instruments we use for ranges from flutes to didgeridoos, drums, different types of drums.
I gotta say, you were telling me a little bit about a new didgeridoo, and you're able to talk about that. But
my brother Adam, he's had an amazing experience in Australia with an amazing brother that does the same work we do, and he makes the original form of didgeridoos, which is called the yadaki, and he's studied with them and has an incredible relationship with them. And now he's making them out of crystal, and now he's upgraded with gold plating them. So we'll have that at the next sound ceremony next weekend.
So yeah, I've ran into you. It's been a couple years now, I think, where you when you've come through here in Salt Lake, it's almost as like, I wouldn't call it a second home for you, because you seem to have many homes.
It's definitely one of the first.
But it's one of them. Okay, yeah. Good. Sure. And you were really drawn to the ecstatic dance community and the work that we do at the Krishna temple, and where we have the Krishna food forest and farm, and kind of seeing those examples. And I just want to mention to anybody who's watching right now, this will eventually be released as an episode of the Permanent Cast. So going to be near the end of this, a few minutes where I'll look for comments and go to that. Yeah, awesome. But I'm going to kind of be ignoring comments while we're chatting here for the next little bit, but we'll move to that. So just want people to know that. Yeah. But yeah, so finding you there and having you do these circles, so much intense musical talent, but also spiritual talent. And being that you are familiar with the work of trauma healing and alchemizing things for peace, I mean, and being that you're a world traveler, I just don't even know where to start. I feel so, there's so much pain in the world right now, right? And so much stuck energy and just kind of this like frustration, I feel like, of how do we help? How do we maintain optimism and hope, in the face of all of this? And I feel like there's some words that you'll have for us today. I think that'll be good to hear. Like what? Yeah. Maybe if you feel into that, like what from your experience has kept you in such a positive place? Are you feeling positive about humanity?
It's such an amazing experience. This time, and the people. It's there's this concept of harmony through chaos. And even right now in these moments, that this concept of the reishi mushroom, before it fruits, it needs violent vibration before it can fruit. And or like, birthing pains, like mothers go through. There's so many examples, like even the calming before the storm. There's so many examples that talk about this phase before a reaction. And I feel like that's where exactly right. I think we're at the height of that, the apex of that. Getting into all these energy medicines and attuning yourself to energy and vibration, it's for myself, I've been able to protect myself. So I do feel a lot of it, especially in cities. But I'm able to like protect myself a little bit. But just a few days ago, when all this started happening, I got an intense headache and dizziness that I've never felt. So I know it's a collective thing that we're all like, there's just so much emotion just in the air. Like it seems like just, just holding space.
Maybe a question I'd have is you say you've kind of worked out some things for yourself that kind of help you stay positive, even when there's a lot of negative emotion out there, or there's a lot of,
Definitely.
just intense emotions. Is there anything you'd recommend for like just kind of maybe the general public? Like, what are some thoughts to like help people stay grounded throughout this?
It's so easy to the line between authentic self truth, like truth, and your ego self, which wants to sometimes fulfill its own desires. Sometimes there's these voices that we listen to. One kind of leads towards another consequence and choice, and the other one leads to maybe more positive. And there's these tools that we've had since for so long to get us out of our minds and get us out of or get us just into harmonious relationship within life in general, whether it's just the 10 Commandments, or for instance the 13 laws of the White Lions, or the 12 divine virtues. I feel like there's these words and these concepts that have always been taught together, whether you call them mystery schools or not. They've always been taught together, and it wasn't until a divine strategic plan that a group of people separated them all, taught them separately, and limited that information. So right off the top of the head, decreeing. For instance, when I ask for something, it puts me in a spot of where I might not be the creator of this reality when I'm asking for something that possibly I already have. So another aspect of thinking about that is decreeing something that's already yours. And you can find this out in indigenous languages, that some of them don't even have a word for asking. That there's not a word for ask, that they would dance, pray, sing to what's already coming, what's already theirs. And so I think that's some of that separation we've lost in our power as divine light beings. I mean, so many ways you can label it, but our power as human beings is God's will. That is a long process because we fell asleep for so long. And coming back to these divine virtues would be exactly what all of the 12 apostles embodied for Yeshua. Jesus. I like to call him Yeshua. So it's all of these divine virtues, as they say, that the 12 apostles embodied for Yeshua. And if it wasn't for them, and Mary Magdalene, of course, and his mother, he wouldn't have been able to do what he did on the cross and the whole resurrection thing. And so, just off the top of my head, the first one is faith. The first one is faith. Decreeing I am faith means that you are faith, not that you're looking for faith or you're seeking for faith, that I am faith, that you are calling that energy, that all of these metaphysical terms, that you are calling it, and therefore that you are it. The universe has to obey by natural law to send that to you. In using our word, it's our bond. Even in law, get back to law, original law, our word was our bond. And in the beginning, there was the word. And so faith, the second divine virtue is strength. Faith and strength is the absolute foundation, they say, to give rise to trust. Faith and strength develop trust in that. And that we come upon like will and power, wisdom, justice. And so we can, what I do is I decree these: I am justice, I am divine justice, I'm divine business, I'm whatever you're seeking, I am these things, because we can go back into what these words I am are, and what they do for the universe when they're spoken. And it's not necessarily our word that the universe is picking up, it's what our feeling.
Something that I've kind of a practice I have is what they call like aspirations, right? Yes. Like when you find yourself kind of repeating a story or saying something to yourself that is limiting or or causes distress, like catching that and kind of wording the opposite or wording it in a way that you can kind of reclaim that power. And I guess when I brought that question of something basic that people can do, like we're getting into some pretty deep elements now, and I love that you're just willing to just dive right into that, you know. But absolutely. I love that that this is your work, and I'm so grateful for you sharing it to people. Maybe what's, you know, talking about the elephant in the room right now, like we're right at the height, like as we're talking today, it's been several days now of protests and sometimes riots in cities all over the country, even some places outside of the United States are feeling this unrest. What would you, I mean, and I think a lot of people are really struggling because on one hand, we're seeing like the kind of uprising that is necessary for the evolution of compassion and humanity. On another hand, it's like, how far does rioting and violence and property destruction, like what element, like how, and it's hard to like even know what to say. Like we're all just kind of like part of this together and excited, but also scared and also anxious. And you know, what would you what's your take on what's going on?
It's forcing us local, right? I feel it's like it's forcing us inside. One, we had this phase of pandemicing or quarantining and going inside, fixing up things inside. And now that this huge transition of riding together and being together is forcing us to talk to one another and start even doing business local, because a lot of things have shut down. And so in order to keep monetary stuff moving, we gotta start moving local. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing, is developing more and more relationships to their local communities, because all over the world I've traveled to different communities, and that's where our strength is together. And even Linda Tucker talks about these beautiful words of the pride of lions isn't a pride without each other. There's not a pride without the group of them. And with each other, obviously we're stronger. Even another example is one arrow is easy to break, and then grabbing 6 arrows, is that others will talk about 6 arrows, 7 arrows, it is a lot harder to break. And I think that's what we're coming into is, and you know, and how we communicate with each other. Do
you feel that there's like a real danger of division getting the best of us right now? Like, because on one hand, like it feels like we're closer than ever to seeing things as they are, especially when it comes to like this racial justice that is needing to happen, and like there's all these opportunities for the people, you know, lower middle class people that are you know, living and breathing and wanting this more beautiful world to happen, and yet you go on social media or you see some of the way that the news is pushing things, and you're kind of like, you know, are we dividing worse than ever, or are we close to unifying? Like, what's your take on that?
Right. I think it's the end. There's that concept of elimination to regeneration. You keep talking about like this transition mode, these group growing pains, and I think we're right there, because it seems to me that even the ones in government, officials, don't even know how it got to be this messy. I think it's kind of taken on its own little awareness, and it seems like a steam pot, like a pressure inside, and all of this manipulation and just this profit, and it just has to be redone. It'll go through a transition phase, and it's going to go through a transition phase, or you just torch the whole thing and start from the beginning. But it's so complex that I don't believe that even if government officials themselves, because you see them on the videos like hammering their own windows and like doing things to each other themselves, and there's just a lot of confusion.
There is.
And
Let's you brought up the word regeneration, and I feel like it's more important than ever right now to really paint a picture of what's possible on this planet,
Yes.
because people aren't really seeing a
Right.
lot of those hopeful stories or examples, right? And sometimes you have to look in places that aren't, on front page news, right? You're not just
Right.
getting it handed to you. You actually have to seek to find examples of self-sufficiency and of ecological healing and of
Right.
communities working innovatively together and healing themselves and the planet around them. And you've been a lot of places. You've shown me pictures and made connections in places for me, which have been like really exciting to follow your journey. It's almost like you're like a kind of an ambassador for like all of these different
Definitely.
groups and
Great word.
organizations that care about the healing of our world.
Definitely.
What does regeneration mean to you, and what are some of the examples of that you've seen in other communities or places in the world?
Regeneration. A good example I'm thinking of right now is the attempted genocide in Rwanda in the 90s, and us not being really educated until I got there, and then getting to that land and feeling just this intensity of, the stories of how this separation and division was strategically brought about by religion. And I realized that all of that trauma and all that fire and all of that hurt and pain, what I experienced there was what, 30 years later is a greenery that I had seen in mountains, and like an economy that's just getting its wheels turning, and flowers, neighborhoods, a lot of things were shifting for the highest good based off of a very recent trauma. And so yeah, that's the kind of the thing I think about when I feel like regeneration. And bringing it back to what you do in permaculture and soils, regeneration is, it's just the composting aspect of things is that closed loop system that you talk about. And I think that's where we've distanced ourselves, and these plastics and these one use things, and kind of separated ourselves through conveniency and luxury. But there is these natural systems of nature that are there and simple. And yeah, regeneration takes effort, takes each other again, takes passion, it takes a connection to the earth, really, um, the earth, and listening to the earth, uh, listening to these plants and these animals, developing a relationship again with ourselves, which is a reflection of the earth. So yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah. So I've been talking a long time, working a long time here, almost a decade now, of working with community and advocating for growing our own food in a way that is organic and heals the soils, and brings people together. Left wing, right wing, religious, non-religious, doesn't matter, right? We get a chance to build soils together, be in the sun, get our hands dirty, all of that good stuff. And the longer this goes, like, it feels like there's progress happening. Like, I do feel like kind of been watching this tidal wave grow over time, of more and more people like aware of these things, like people that agree that, like, 75% of what goes into our landfills is technically biodegradable, right? That would turn back into soil if we weren't throwing it away. So I mean, we know we're wasteful. We know that the food that's being produced has way too many chemicals, way too fossil fuel dependent. There's not transparency around it. There's like this huge need to what I call be in service to life, right? It's this like slogan of my county mayor campaign. And it feels like it's time for it, but it also feels like being a long way away. And I guess where I'm going with this is I've always had so much confidence and passion and enthusiasm for this being the inevitable truth that people get behind. Is like, we're going to connect with communities, we're going to heal the planet, we're going to grow our food, we're going to heal the world. You know what I mean? Like all these things. But it seems like now with the pandemic, with the riots, with the uprising, with everything that's going on, there's this like element of doubt. There's this feeling like we're closer than ever, and now like the collective is really looking at it, and they're saying, okay, like, what are the next steps, right? Like, if you're serious about this, like, how are we gonna transform this thing? And a lot of people along our lines, I feel like, avoid the conversation about politics. And since I'm in the midst of this campaign for county mayor, I want to bring it up. Like, what what do you think politics is going to look like as things shift? Like, is there, maybe let's talk about that for a minute.
I feel like, well, it just gets into relationships again, politics, and then like interest, and then profit. Those words, profit, and then profit of knowledge. It's a very fine line, those two words, and what our intentions are. And again, getting back to local, even getting back to some examples of indigenous society, these clan mothers generally run by women, would be the electors of certain roles in communities and villages. So I mean, like, a lot of that has to come back to local communities of how we govern ourselves, rather than a whole network, a whole United States situation. So I think getting back to relationships and politics is how order's instilled, and this whole thing about policy itself and politics and police enforcers is a thing we have to educate ourselves on, because legalism and lawful are very different things. And it's because of legalism that we're at where we're at, because legalism is a projection of law. It's a projection of law, and it has to do with sticky situations of why we're at where we're at, and agreements that we have to sign right at birth, and or why don't we get any of the access to the bank account that our social security's numbers on. So again, there's a lot of this privatization and like this closeness, this profit. And so just opening that back up, and I think politics is going to be, if we want to be harmonious with each other, we need to know what everybody's doing, what all of our transactions, everything's transparent, decentralized, it's collaboration, co-harmonization. So, and that can only start local. And like you say, it's I haven't voted in the longest time, so I'm guilty. But there is a lot of people stepping in that speak a heart language, and so seeing that, I'm becoming motivated to step into some of that.
One of the big hopes I have from choosing to run, when the Green Party asked me to run, was to really open the floodgates for other millennials and for people that have this in service to life ethic, to realize that, maybe it is time to be running for politics, and to be organizing, and to be using it. Because, like, I'll tell you, like, the things that I do with the Krishna Food Forest and Farm, and the initiatives, growing food, and the air protectors, and all the work I do, like, there's been a lot of blessings from choosing to run for county mayor. I've been able to, like, get interviews and get my message out there in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do.
Meet a lot of people.
Yeah, meeting a lot of people, and like really having a chance to build coalitions and see some good get done. Like where we're at the Krishna Food Forest and Farm, between me and Randy and our volunteers like Chad and Chris and Genevieve and several others. Like we've managed to install over 20 gardens, or help either install or help over 20 gardens, like within close enough to the temple, like, so it's like really building that, like, amazing, locally connected. And I feel like people think it's like, I almost feel defensive, like it's like too simple of a solution to build that community, because the world's problems are so huge, like what can we do at any level, but
gardens is one.
And where does it start, and how do we keep our attention span in place for this? Like, my goodness, man, like a new idea and a couple of buzz feeds and some hashtags, like it can grow really quickly. But when it comes to like staying dedicated to these principles. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
takes a discipline you're not going to get just from scrolling Facebook or social
Right.
media, right? Like, it's like this, like, you got to find something in yourself
Yes.
to stick to it. What advice would you have for people that are, really going to use this faith and this strength
Right.
to stand up for the world and for their communities? Like,
Well, I
yeah.
think we were just talking about it the other day. I've traveled to many places, going dancing and meeting very like-minded people, and this new platform that you talk about, ecstatic dance, that's thriving here in many places all over. Just to give you an example, last year I decided to let ecstatic dance guide my travels in the Mediterranean. And I noticed that it's just younger there than it is here. So it's just more developed in the States, but it's such an amazing platform. I had so many realizations that this ecstatic dance, Denver calls it rhythm sanctuary, but 5 rhythms. So these intentional dance spaces, that is at the Krishna Garden. I've realized that Salt Lake City has the only place where the permaculture and the dance are uniting, connecting. And I tell everybody this I travel into, because I've danced my butt off everywhere. But when you go have a connection to these plants and this land and these people that are working their hands with you, it gives a whole nother sense of celebration and why we come together and why we grow these foods together. So I really see a huge bridge and outlet for people that are self-expressive and seeking higher truth and wisdoms, is gardens, urban gardens, and intentional dancing, as of course as anything has to do with kirtan and yoga. So, like, different events that you can just seed yourself into to meet like-minded people. And the Krishna Gardens and that dance Salt Lake City are, I tell a lot of people, I travel a lot and tell people about the Salt Lake tribe back here. So
That's awesome. Maybe I'm going to start checking here for a minute for any comments or questions from the live stream. Anybody that wants to interact with us today. But maybe while I'm doing that, maybe talk a little bit about what's coming up for you and your brother and Ancestral Medicine Revival. Like, has things been crazy from the pandemic? Like, I mean, what's going on for you right now?
It's only been harmonious. So over the quarantine, we stayed a month in Sedona, which allowed a couple of us to gather a music routine, a story routine, like a prayer performance, some medicine, music vibes, and we want to travel. We're on our travels now, so we started in Sedona, went to Vegas, and went to southern Utah, and now we're here. Intention to connect to communities and gardens, ecstatic dances, and we have this intention to build somewhat pyramids on top of, like, or somewhere in gardens. We want to incorporate pyramids with gardens, and so that's what we're kind of doing now.
I love this question, and I
what does it say?
What does like-minded people mean to you, Izzi? We want to ground this thing. We're going to define what's going on here. Yeah,
people that are sensitive to animals, each other, emotions, sensitive to love, sensitive to judgment, sensitive to just these concepts of life, that that we have choices. Even just that awareness of choice, sensitive to that, and just open mind is an open heart. I think they coincide with each other. I think an open mind leads to an open heart, and they say that's the longest journey. The longest journey is life, and it's from the head to that. But but we're traveling with a good brother and sister doing combo ceremonies. That's some of the work we're doing. They've entirely rebuilt their bus, and designed it over ceremony. And combo is just as a frog medicine that goes throughout the body and detoxes. So it's a lot of purging. So we hold space and do some music and some chanting. And my comparison is only like maybe a 3 week detox, a food detox, a juice detox, maybe tea detox, all in 30 minutes would be what combo is. So we're doing that as far as the travels as well.
And how do people get tapped into news from Ancestral Medicine Revival, or what's
Ancestral Medicine Revival is our Facebook page, and then we have ancestralmedicinerevival.weebly.com too.
Beautiful.
And, yeah, so we're gonna be touring for the next couple months as well. We're gonna go through Idaho, Oregon to Mount Shasta, doing these drum circles, breath work, garden stuff, volunteering, the combo ceremonies, and then intentional events. So we're gonna do something at the end of June.
You've been to some pretty wild places over the last 2-3 years. We didn't even really lay out the list, but I mean, you guys have been to Egypt, right? And where are some of the places you've been?
Egypt. Yeah, so we've taken so part of our work is what we call spirit quests, and it's just been by word of mouth, and it's been a product of us traveling the way we've been traveling, and naturally we've been taking people to these sacred sites. And so we go to Sedona and Mount Shasta, we've gone to Wyoming, Egypt, like you said, South Africa to the White Lions. It's a whole podcast on its own, the White Lions, and Linda Tucker and her work. And Peru a few times. My brother just got done in New Zealand with 5 Haudenosaunee sister women. He took them to New Zealand to sing with the Maori people, do ceremonies over there. So that was amazing. And then the next one is in Mount Shasta at the end of August. So, and then our intention of taking people to these sacred sites, or what science calls vortex sites, is to just connect with the land, play music, dance, and ceremony, again, which is simply just group focus and intention. Usually it's in the form of an element: water, fire, earth, air, tree. So yeah, we've designed our spirit quests to just be an experience that we can move harmoniously together, as well as do some of this other work. That's fun.
Great.
Yeah.
Would you be? See, I got another question here from somebody. Is there any public ceremony happening around Salt Lake in the next month that you would want to talk about?
Just right now, I think we're gonna gather at the end of June, like June 26th and 27th in Lava Hot Springs. We're just gonna do some intentions as far as what we've been talking about, is open it up with just a fire ceremony, and keep it intentional, but invite, obviously I haven't talked to you about it, but intentional musicians, intentional DJs, and these creative cooks, and get just a camping vibe, a self-sustainable vibe that we can all just come together and just vibrate higher together. That's
great. Yeah. Is that something you'll be posting in the Ancestral Medicine Revival group?
I'll post that soon.
Okay,
not
cool.
yet, but soon.
Would you feel called to maybe bless us with a little more flute music on our way out of here, Izzy? It's so beautiful.
That's what I'm saying. Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time today and plugging in with me and sharing so much of your beautiful journey and bringing some of your tools and gifts to people listening. Thank you so much, Izzy. Yeah.
I just want to add too, some ways that we're sustaining ourselves on the travels is some of our artwork, bracelets. I don't have any of my necklaces on, but actually an ambassador from a good brother from ipyramids.net, doing these eye pyramids and feather fans, single feathers, stone jewelries, and we're also making sprays and oils. So we have all kinds of stuff. We don't have an online website. We just have it available at our sound ceremonies and events. So several ways that we get that we can offer energy medicine. But
Great. Do you have an email that you'd want people to reach out to you on, or
that's
anything?
cool.
Or
Yeah, it's RAMII
RA what?
RAMII
Mhm.
SRE.
At Gmail.
Uh-huh. Yeah, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you.